Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we talked with a homeowner that's fairly frustrated because when his new brick home was built, they didn't guard against the splashback where dirt and clay can get on the bricks. Well, they get on the bricks, they stay on the bricks. Is there anything you can do? We think so.
That's a pretty common problem too, right, Danny? Mm-hmm. We hear about every month or two we get that question.
I know it.
And I'm going to share a simple solution about using bamboo skewers. That's right. If you don't have bamboo skewers in your workshop, maybe you should, and I'll tell you why coming up.
Great idea. And in our DIY project of the week, we tell you how you can actually create a punching bag just using scrap materials. Now, this might seem like a kind of an obscure thing, but we actually have a video that's been viewed by almost 600,000 homeowners. You'll want to hear about this.
And the podcast question of the week, we're going to tackle how to patch and paint water-damaged concrete walls.
And if you want to keep kids busy all day long and all you need is a roll of painter's tape, hey, no, we're not taping them to the chair. No, we're creating an activity so that the kids can stay busy, that and a whole lot more. So we're going to get started right now. We know that a lot of people are at home, and a lot of people may be spending more consecutive days at home than maybe they ever have before. I've been seeing some pretty creative things online, Joe, in terms of some of the, on social media, some of the things people are doing to keep their kids occupied. I love the email that you sent me the other day that my grandson Gus might enjoy. That's the inside obstacle course that was created with a roll of painter's tape. And that was cool.
Yeah, cool. Well, summer break for most families, the kids came home about 2 months early, and it's like, uh-oh, now what? But yeah, it was actually a fun idea, especially if you live in an area of the country where you can't get outside much, where the parents took a roll of 3/4-inch blue painter's tape, and they stuck it down around the house and across furniture. And because it's painter's tape, you don't have to worry about it harming anything you put it on. They put it up and over couches and along the floor. And the idea is the child, this would look like he was about the same age as Danny's grandson, Gus. He might have been 2 or 3 years old, this little boy. And he's running along and had to climb up and over furniture and climb under stuff. And it was hilarious. And the kid, I'm sure they can't stop this little boy from running through the house. So there are a lot of creative ways to stay busy if you're stuck in the house. If you can get outside, get outside. I mean, here in Connecticut, we've been having some pretty nice weather lately, and we've been outside as much as possible, staying away from people, just wandering around, walking through the trails we have in the woods here or just on the street. So there are ways to stay busy. But yeah, if you have kids at home, especially young kids, we have 2 adult children who came home, and they take up a lot of space. But in any case, yeah, there are creative ways to stay busy. And one way is to, if you have any maintenance that typically takes a little longer to do, this is a good time as well. And you don't have to do it all. Danny and I say this all the time. You don't have to do it all at once. If it's like sanding down the railings on your deck or something, you can do one railing at a time, do one today, one tomorrow, whenever, but do it. Like they say, every marathon starts with a single step, right? And the same thing with home improvement. If you have a large project, do one little step. I often will spend the evening before I start a project just getting my tools together, because I've found over the years that I wake up, I'm all geared up, ready to start this project, and I spend like 4 hours looking for tools. Then at that point, it's like, well, let's have lunch and watch some TV, and I've wasted most of the day. So so that is a tip that I've used. Just get the materials, and what often will happen is you'll get the materials and you realize, oh, wait, I was going to paint this room, but I don't have a sash brush because I remember I threw away my sash brush last time. So now what? I got to run to the store. I'd rather go to Home Depot at 10 o'clock at night than do it in the morning. Because once I leave the house, you never know where I might end up. Yeah. So I'd rather go, get it, and then in the morning, you can hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. And, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I think, a couple ideas here that to keep the kids busy and very, very gratifying, plant something. And, of course, in some parts of the country, it's still a little early to do your spring planting, but the container gardening inside your house. And I'll tell you what, we've got a ton of tips on today'shomeowner.com about different container gardens, and certainly on our Simple Solution segment of
that's right.
Of the site, you'll see a lot of different ways to start seedlings earlier, how to, watering techniques, ideas like that, and do that. Maybe get, if you have 2 children, get 2 different containers, let them do the planting, a little bit of cultivating involved in it, and of course the daily watering to make them grow. That is a really cool project to do with the kids. And but I'll tell you something we did recently on a show, Joe, that people should consider is if you have an old light fixture inside, outside, wherever. And
Right.
this particular, the one we were doing is one of the wall-mounted fixtures right by an entryway. And this was a good quality fixture, but it had been outside for 35 years, so naturally it needed a little help. So we took that fixture off, had 3 little glass kind of beveled glass pieces in it that we were able to remove. We cleaned it up really good, kind of rubbed it really clean, sanded it lightly, didn't take much. Then put it on a piece of cardboard and sprayed it with a hammered nickel finish. This
Wow.
it was just
That sounds
ugly
cool.
black, but this nickel hammered finish, I mean, it was just like we bought a brand new fixture, cleaned the glass, put it back in, put it back up. Okay, so we just invested $6 and not even an hour's worth of time, really. Be careful with the electrical, of course. Make sure it's all turned off at the breaker and so forth. But amazing, just immediately, wow, I'm glad I did. Because, to put it frankly, I guess a lot of the new fixtures you buy are not going to be as good quality
Right.
as that
Yep.
fixture that's there, that's solid metal and aluminum, whatever it is. And but it really did turn out well. So don't throw things away. And now with the plastic fusion type paint that's available, all of these plastic things outside your house that may not, tables and chairs and things like that may not look the best, they can look a heck of a lot better with just a coat of paint.
Yeah, shutters. We often talk about vinyl
yeah.
and plastic shutters, and they fade really quickly. Take them off. Obviously it's best to take them off, clean them really well, and be careful taking them down, especially if you do it in the summer, because bees and hornets love
they love
making
behind
nests
there.
behind those louvers, or behind the shutters. Sometimes the louvers are kind of fake, and they don't have spaces between them. Either way, they get behind there. And how do you tell? Well, you could get your neighbor to take it off and check, but don't do that. What you do is take a garden hose and spray between the louvers and behind it. And if there are bees in there, they'll come flying out. Just to be sure, because you don't want to be up on a ladder and suddenly are swarmed by bees, because that could be pretty dangerous. But yeah, anything plastic, they do make special paint for that. And you'd be surprised what a coat of paint will do to dress up. It'll look brand new. And as Danny said, no sense replacing them. Just repaint them and they look good as new.
And we've mentioned before another tip, especially if you have the vinyl shutters, that we've gotten a lot of comments back from listeners that have tried it and it works very, very well. And that's using Armor All, just
That's right,
the same vinyl restorer that you use on your dashboard. And it is always amazing that your dashboard, you finally look at it and go, wow, this thing looks like it's 100 years old. And then you just, clean it and use the Armor All to kind of revitalize it. It's amazing. Well, many times that will work very well on vinyl shutters. And you don't even have to take them down. Again, be careful of any bees or wasps that might have built nests there. But you can coat that and it'll revitalize it and protect it a little bit. Makes a big difference. Well, let's get right to it. We're going to Michigan. Kevin's on the line.
Hi there. Yeah, I got a question. I live up here in Michigan, and I painted the bottom of my house, my cement blocks, with a paint about 5 years ago, and it's all peeling off. And I was wondering what I could get to take the rest of that off, and then I wondered what I could get to repaint them cement blocks.
Okay. Now, these outside blocks or inside?
Yes, outside blocks.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, when that paint starts peeling and flaking off like that, it's not the best looking thing. I
Right.
know exactly what you mean there, and certainly it provides some protection to keep any of the water out and so forth. Well, first thing is to scrape as much of it as you can off, even using like a 3-inch or 6-inch Even a drywall knife type of thing works pretty well. A thin blade to get behind that as much as you can. And then, Joe, what do you think on something like that? Because when you get that thicker paint outside, sanding is not going to do very well. But I wonder about disc sanding in order to really get pretty aggressive on that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Kevin. First, if there's paint that's stuck really well, we often say to just leave it in place, because if it's stuck really well, there's no reason really to remove it. So, if there are areas where the paint looks like it's in great shape, I would leave it. But I think there are two ways. If you own a random orbit sander, I would take it and put a 60 grit, which is one of the coarsest discs you can find, put on a dust mask and goggles and all that stuff, and just grind away at it. You'll see it'll come off pretty quickly. And they also make wire wheel brushes. They're round, and you can chuck them into a drill, and that will remove any loose paint and probably any paint that's not loose. So that's what I would do, get it off. Then as far as what to do is once you get it really clean, the very best exterior grade paint for concrete block and masonry surfaces is called elastomeric.
Yeah, that's great.
Type of paint. And most paint companies, Behr makes one, you can get it at Home Depot, and Sherwin-Williams makes one called Surelast, like S-H-E-R, Surelast. But just look for elastomeric coating.
Elastomeric. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Sometimes it's called coating and not paint. But that would be the way to go. You could also use 100% acrylic latex paint, which is just house paint, the best house paint you can buy. But if you're going to be doing this and you don't want to do it again, I would look for elastomeric paint.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for being with us here, and have a great weekend. And grab the scraper, grab the paintbrush, and grab the elastomeric. That's all you really need to have that's all you need to have a good weekend, right?
That's right.
Thanks so much.
Well, we're talking about people have their kids home. This is the perfect job.
That's right. Yeah.
Like your son or daughter out there. Honey, let me introduce you to the wire wheel.
Who was it that tricked their friends and everything into painting the fence? Was it Tom Sawyer?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
He made believe he was having so much fun.
Yeah.
He said, no, I don't want to go fishing. I want to do this. Really? That's fun. Yeah, grab a brush. Let me show you.
There you go.
A half hour later, he was on the banks fishing.
That's right. You can try that with kids. You can try that with neighbors. Never, ever works with the wife. But anyway, it's a certain way of doing that. It's time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Many of you are in the middle of spring cleaning, and one chore around the home that you should definitely consider tackling is unclogging and opening up any of those slow-draining kitchen or bathroom sinks. And, there's a lot of cleaners out there that will boast how powerful they are, but what we often see is how powerful their chemical smell may be, which is never anything that you welcome inside your home. Well, that's not a problem with Green Gobbler's Drain Clog Dissolver.
Wow, what a name.
I know, Green Gobbler. That's easy to remember. It has new packaging, but it still contains the same great odorless, non-corrosive formula but now in 2 pre-mixed bottles. So it clings to blockage to quickly dissolve grease, hair, soap scum from sinks, tubs, toilets, and showers. Almost anybody that has a home of any age at all maybe has a drain that's a little slow, so you might want more information on Green Gobbler's Drain Clog Dissolver. You can log on to HomeDepot.com and find out all about it. What a name, Joe. I'll tell you the names, but they're just people, all kinds of different names, and different ways of going there.
Sounds a little like turkey.
Yeah, I know it. So
of course, if it's green, don't eat it. Don't eat the green turkey.
Exactly. Hey, let's go right to the Today's Homeowner Hotline. Graylin's on the phone right now. Hey, welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, it's going great. Here you've got a little bit of a frustrating situation.
Oh, man. Let me tell you about it.
All right.
So my house was constructed in 2016, but apparently when they were laying the bricks, it had to have rained maybe a day or two, and the sod wasn't down. And that rain hit that red mud, and it splashed up on the bricks, and it's in the bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And now I tried power washing it with just plain water, but it didn't do any good. And I looked at some products online, but they were like corrosive, or they had acids in them, and they said it could damage your lawn or shrubbery. So I really just don't know what to do to get it out.
Okay, well, it's certainly a problem, and it's one that can be avoided so easily, Graylin. I'll tell you, I've built a lot of houses, just built a new house for myself, and you know something that I did. I have I don't have bricks, but I have a fiber cement siding, and I still didn't want all of that clay, splashing up on that.
Yeah.
And so what I always did is I would buy this inexpensive hay, several bales of hay, and all along the drip line, I kept a 3-foot path all the way around the house. Not only does it kind of minimize dirt that's being tracked into the home, but when that splash, it just dissipates that splash to where you don't have it splashing back against the house. I wish other builders would do that. It costs a little bit of money, not much. You're talking about just, trash hay basically, but I wish they had used that on your house. But we've had this question before, and it is a genuine concern. It's one of those things that every darn time you drive up to your house, you probably look at it.
Your eyes go right to it.
I know it. So I know, Joe, you did some research on this a while back because we had this same scenario with another homeowner. What do you think is the best way for Graylin to approach this?
Well, Graylin, there are this is a common enough problem. They actually do make products specifically for that are not acidic or corrosive, and they're typically just called red clay stain removers.
Okay.
And there's a company called Crud Cutter, and that's both words are spelled with a K. That's a company. They have a lot of products. They make one. There's a company out of Georgia, and Georgia has a lot of red clay pretty much everywhere, and they have one called Mud Away.
Mud Away.
And then the safest one that I've heard is, I've not used this particular one. It's called a company called Enviro Safe. So it's like environment, ENVIO, then the word safe, Enviro Safe, red clay stain remover. But before you even buy anything, what I would try is get some oxygen bleach, powdered oxygen bleach, and it's sold by different names. Ajax makes one. But in any case, you just mix it with hot water, which is important, not cold water, because you have to dissolve it. Mix it, stir it up, then just try a small spot to see if it works before you try to do the whole house. And just scrub it with a nylon bristle scrub brush at first. And if that works, then that would be the least expensive way to go. So that's what I would try. If the oxygen bleach doesn't work, then you can go to one of the red clay stain removers. And I should mention, the good thing about oxygen bleach is it doesn't evaporate as quickly as chlorine bleach. And if you get it on you, it's not going to stain your clothes. It's not going to kill the plants next door or the grass or anything else.
Okay, oxygen bleach. So I can get that anywhere in a hardware store.
You can get that at a supermarket.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you can get that anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this right quick. Now, I saw on one site right quick, they said maybe you should soak the brick first before you put a product on it. Soak the brick.
That's always a good idea.
Soak up some of the water, and then try a product, and then try and maybe power wash it or scrub it or what have you.
Yeah,
that would be a good idea. It would help dissolve some of the mud. But if you're using a product, a commercially made product like Crud Cutter or Mud Away, read the directions. If you should wet the surface first, they would definitely tell you that.
Okay, great.
And I would also suggest, Graylin, that you wet all of your shrubs and your grass and that type of thing,
absolutely,
just to minimize any chance that it will harm that or stunt the growth in any way. That'll help you a little bit on that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, we got a weekend ahead of us here. Get out there and get it done, okay?
Hey, it's a job. Got to do it.
Okay, man. Well, thanks so much, and best of luck to you. Stay healthy, and thanks for being with us.
Same here. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much. We want to remind you that you can visit with us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and if you'd like to send me a message through Twitter, it's at Danny Lipford. Also, our e-newsletter is free, and all you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com. Right on the front page there will be your opportunity to click on and share with us your email address, and we will share with you some great information each and every week from the Today's Homeowner editorial team. Our podcast, don't forget about that, todayshomeowner.com/podcast or anywhere that you download your podcast. Hey, during this time of that we're going throughout the country, and a lot of times during this time of the year, people start thinking about getting some chaos out of their house through organizing. Some people are just wired to be organized. Some have a little trouble with it, and that's why we bring in our friend
Why were you looking at me when you
I was looking straight at you, Joe Truini. We're bringing in our friend Kandy Negus, who's a professional organizer. She's been with us before and always does a great job in offering some tips to get you started in the right direction. Kandy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
Absolutely. Well, so many people are stuck in their house. Cabin fever is setting in. They're looking for ways to not only occupy their time, but also their kids, maybe a little bit. Get them started. What would you suggest someone that's looking around, they just don't know where to start? They see that they have too many clothes in their closet. They have their garages unorganized. Let's get America started here on this.
Okay. Well, Danny, let me tell you, I've got firsthand experience because last week of the quarantine, I was all over the place, Danny. I mean, you start getting this time at home, and there's almost like a panic that sets in because you're like, I've got to be productive. I've got to be productive. I've been given all this time. Now I've got to be productive. And so last week I was buying stain and paint, cleaning out the closet. I mean, I was all over the place, and I'm an organizer, so I had to stop and go, okay, make a list. So my first piece of advice to anyone listening today is stop and make a list. Just get your notebook paper out, old-fashioned, make a list of all your projects, inside, outside. I realize some of our listeners might live in apartments or zero lot line or condos, and so maybe they don't have an outside. But make a list of your projects. What do you want to get done? That's the first step with this new normal we're all living in, is we need a list of what we want to get done.
And one of the things that I think I heard you say at one point, which is an important part of it, is when, of course, part of organizing is to get rid of a lot of things that you don't need. And one of the things that you mentioned is be honest with yourself. I think that says a lot because, come on, you got to ask yourself, have you used this? Will you use this? Do you really need it? Are you going to do without it? I guess that's one of the first little, things that you have to look at yourself a little bit, inside yourself a little bit, to determine what you can part with.
Yes, Danny. And I find that maybe in the past people found, let's just pick on spring decluttering. I personally have got all my outdoor projects lined up right now because the weather's beautiful. And truthfully, we all just need to get outside right now. So we're working on our garages and our outdoor he sheds and she sheds. And so in the past, maybe all of us did not want to take the time to answer some of those hard questions. And so we would just run out there in our storage shed and work in it for 2 hours and make it look a little neater maybe and feel a little bit better about ourselves. But now, Danny, we really can stop and do a thorough declutter of the storage shed and the garage. Because what I find with my clients is when they can't make a decision inside their home about their personal belongings, you know what they do, Danny? They move it to the garage.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's what they do. They move it from the inside to the outside, and they say, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. Well, guess what, guys? Later is here.
That's right. Yeah.
Later is here. So this is the time to take a beautiful weekend and just get outside and start on your garage and start asking yourself about all those things in the garage. I mean, people have 4 or 5 weed eaters, and only one of them works, Danny. So, and I will say right now that all the donation centers are open right now. They're open, so you can do your clean out and you can go drop off.
Kandy, I wanted to mention one other thing you talked about, making a list, and we did that very recently because we have 2 adult children at home. My wife is a teacher, so she's home. And the great thing about making a list now is that you have help, right? So even just making a list, I got my wife involved, and we talked about what needed to be done to organize and clean out, starting with our basement and garage. And then we assigned, because there's certain things that our kids can do now, and whether we're moving it out and just cleaning it and then finding a better place for it rather than keeping it in the garage where it's in the way. And then we're going to start indoors at the closets and, where we have a couple of spare bedrooms that were spare bedrooms, and now they're not because the kids are home. But we had been using it for storage. So we're going to go through it. And with the list, we have plenty of people now that help tackle those chores.
Yes. Yes, I mean, utilize everybody in the family.
Great information for us. And I would remind everybody, now tell us about the website real quick, Kandy.
Okay, my website is orderyourspaces.com, and I'm also on social media, Facebook and Instagram, orderyourspaces.com. And I have been going live at 12 noon every day, just trying to help everyone with the new normal, just giving organizing tips every day on Facebook.
Well, we'll certainly continue to give you a holler from time to time to help us out on getting things organized. We certainly appreciate you being with us today. Okay, here's some information you're definitely going to want to pay attention to. If your backyard needs a makeover, head over right now and enter the Backyard Paradise Contest at todayshomeowner.com/backyard for a chance to win your own wonderful landscaped backyard. The pros from Pavestone and Quikrete will design a project for the winner's home, and the whole process will be featured on an upcoming episode of the Today's Homeowner television show. So you want to get your yard ready for summer? Complete your entry right now. That's todayshomeowner.com/backyard paradise. A fantastic contest brought to you by our friends at Pavestone and Quikrete. A very popular contest and a very popular episode we do each and every year. And speaking of popularity contest, one thing that wins a popularity contest almost every week is our simple solution. Right, Joe?
I hope so. I love doing them, and we seem to get a really good response from both the TV audience and our radio listeners. And here's one. I noticed down in my workbench that I have a can with lots of different little tools in them, including bamboo skewers. And I thought this would be a good, simple solution to share with people. I keep bamboo skewers down there, and these are the ones you typically use for barbecuing, but they're handy around the shop, and I use them to puncture the foil seal on tubes of caulk or adhesives. They're also great, I've discovered, for spreading glue into deep mortises, dowel holes, biscuit slots, and other tight spaces like that. We often hear from listeners trying to glue chairs back together. You pull the chair slightly apart, you use the skewer, you can spread glue into those tight spaces. And I also use them to plug up stripped screw holes. So if you have a hinge screw that's stripped, we talked about hammering in a wooden golf tee or a piece of wood, a sliver of wood. Well, these are great for that. They're bamboo, and I'm not sure they still make them out of wood. They might, but either one would work. But in any case, if you keep a pack of these skewers, and by the way, you can buy like 20 of them for about $1.50. You'll find use for them. And you tap them in, cut them off if they're too long, and you just have to be careful because they're kind of pointy. But other than that, try keeping them in your shop. You'd be surprised how often you'll use them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It makes a lot of sense. But, whoa, it makes me hungry. Man, shish kebabs.
That didn't take long.
Shish kebabs. I just love shish kebabs with beef, with pork, with shrimp, with... Yeah. Oh, man, I'm starting to...
You have to remember to soak them first, right? That's the key when you're cooking.
Absolutely.
You soak them first, otherwise you'll just disintegrate. They'll burn to nothing. So soak them for, 10 or 15 minutes in water,
for a little while. Make sure they get good and wet. That can be very, very problematic. Well, good. Another simple solution from my buddy Joe Truini, and you can find over 500 of them waiting on you right now at todayshomeowner.com/simple solutions. Now it's time for our DIY project of the week: how to make a kid's punching bag from recycled materials. Joe, I remember this is a video that you did with a young one of the children of one of our producers, and had no idea how popular this would be. But it's a very interesting way of doing it. Basically, Joe, you can help me out on this a little bit. Let's see, you guys took a piece of PVC pipe that 4-inch diameter, 3 foot long.
Right.
And you had a little plywood, a 10-inch diameter scrap piece of plywood.
Right. That was just for the base of the body bag, the punching bag, right?
And a 4-inch one as well for, I guess, the top part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then a little bit of used carpet pad. And in this case, it could actually be, something that's being removed from a project, or you can always drop by a carpet center. They'll always have a small piece.
Absolutely.
This is only 3 foot by 12 foot, and a roll of duct tape. Now, what in the world could you create with that? So take us through some of the steps by steps of you've got these materials, which essentially are just scraps.
Yeah, it was all scrap in this case. Right?
Okay, and where do you go from there?
Well, once you cut the PVC pipe, you cut it to about 3 foot long, and then you use a jigsaw to cut out the 2 pieces of plywood. And one's about 10, and you can use almost any not quarter-inch, but you use half-inch, 5/8, 3/4 inch plywood. And you cut one diameter about 10 inches, one about 4 inches. And again, that forms the base at the bottom and a little cap at the top. And then you attach one disc to the center of the other one. The smaller disc goes into the center of the large one, and you screw it to the bottom. You screw one disc to the other, and you cut the carpet pad to size using a utility knife. And basically what you're doing is you're taking this and you're rolling the pipe with the carpet pad. And we used a piece about 12 foot long, and it made it 10 or 12 inches in diameter, right? Mm-hmm. So you basically just have this big ball, this big roll of foam. Uh-huh. And then, okay, so now what do? We don't have like a big leather sleeve to put this thing in. So we just took a roll of duct tape, and it does take an entire roll, by the way, and we just wrapped it. You just went round and round and round. You overlap it by at least half.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh, sure.
And you just spiral it all the way up to the top. And at the top of the pipe, I think we just drilled a couple of holes and hung it from a chain and from the rafters, and that's it.
Wow.
If you use this all the time, eventually the tape might separate, but get another roll of duct tape.
And also
go right over it.
Also heard that you can kind of polish it up a little bit if you have a little bit of leather, that you can actually wrap the punching bag with a leather sheet and secure it with some black duct tape for just a little color-coordinated look, just to kind of dress it up a little bit. But it's a very interesting and a great example of being able to use scrap materials for something that you can really take advantage of the time when your kids are available to do a little punching, take a little of that aggression out of those kids
right.
there.
You might be using it yourself and not letting the kids get to it these days as we're all stuck in the house. And this was a little hard to try to describe. It was very simple, but just go to the video. I'm there with Josh, Scott, our producer's middle son. He and I had a lot of fun making it, and I think it's still in the garage. I don't know if it's hung up still, but it's still there. So check out the video. It makes it really clear how to build this.
There you go. You can go to today'shomeowner.com/videos, and you'll be able to, or just go in the search engine there and go how to make a punching bag, and you'll be able to see the entire video. Hey, let's roll right into our podcast question of the week, and we'd love for you to send us a question anytime at all. Just go to today'shomeowner.com/podcast. This one comes from Sandra. It says, my parents' basement sustained some water damage this past year. They put in a sump pump, and now they need to repair the floor. I painted the floor a few years ago with a good cement paint, and you can see by the pictures, and that's great, Sandra, sending these pictures, there's flaky spots we need to repair. What is the best way to repair the divots and seal the concrete? Do I need to strip all the paint off? And what about the white powdery residue? Do I need to seal it, then paint it? Please help me out. Okay, well, first of all, Joe, when they're talking about that white powdery residue, we know that is efflorescence. Exactly. Which is kind of a calcium deposit. And one of the first things I would do here is, first of all, scrape as much of the loose paint as you possibly can. You can use a lot of times you can use a shovel, you can use a scraper, you can use a putty knife, anything you can do to get every piece of the loose paint off. That would be the first step. Sweep all of that up, maybe a shop vac to clean it up. Then it's time for our old cleaner friend, TSP.
TSP, absolutely. Trisodium phosphate. You want to scrub, and that goes for actually repainting almost anything. You just clean it really well, and then rinse it off with some water and let it dry really thoroughly. The efflorescence you can clean off with a 50-50 mix of vinegar and water if there's any remaining. And Sandra mentions that there's some divots. So if there's some divots, holes, cracks, they make there are a whole lot of different concrete patches. One I've used is by Quickcrete. It's called vinyl concrete patch. And it couldn't be easier. It comes in a plastic tub that's already pre-mixed. You don't even have to mix it. You just scoop it out and spread it over the divots. Use as wide a putty knife as you need to cover the divot. Let it dry. And then, once it's clean and patched, then you can go back with a primer and a masonry paint. Painting a floor, unfortunately, as we recommend more often than not, is not going to last. Painted masonry floors, you're going to wind up wearing the paint off, but at least you have it protected and make it a little easier to sweep and mop up, I guess, if there are any, stains on the floor.
And it certainly looks a lot better. But do read the instructions on the patch that you put down to make sure that you wait the appropriate time before you paint it. Probably won't be the same day. Might need to give it a day or two.
Yeah,
so,
no, it wouldn't be the same day.
Be careful to read all of those instructions. Again, you can send us a question anytime, todayshomeowner.com/podcast. We certainly appreciate you spending some time with us here on the podcast. Hope we were able to provide you the kind of information you want. Let us know. Give us a comment. Let us know if there's anything that you would like for us to direct future podcasts towards. And we certainly appreciate the continued great reviews we're getting on the podcast. That's the way it works. You're able to rise up and become more available to more people with the better reviews that you get. Thanks to all of you that have spent some time giving us a good review. Well, I'm Danny Lipford along with Joe Truini. That pretty much wraps up the podcast for this week, but we'll be back next week. Thanks so much for listening.